Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. I'm a lunatic today. What can I say? It's a full moon fever out there. Everyone's going to see the beautiful full moon if you got clear skies. And we're going to talk a little bit about some fact and fancy of the full moon. And we welcome you here for over 25 years. The American Space Museum and its U.S. Space Walk of Fame nonprofit foundation have been preserving the birth of America's space age, and this program, born out of the pandemic 4.5 years ago, uh, has always offering unique programming from astronaut interviews. We love space workers and astronomy, of course, my wheelhouse. We want to do some backyard astronomy, not technical stuff, so it gets you outside under the moonlight and planets and stuff. So hope that you tell your friends to watch us. I'm looking at my smart tablet here, Marty, waiting for this to pop up, but it hasn't yet. So we can take your questions there. Let me try to effort that a little bit better. And we're gonna have a short show. I promise you, we'll be out of here by in 25 minutes because we've got an important board meeting that I've been asked to attend on behalf of on the museum here. We got a great board of directors. I was just talking to Bob Seek, who launched 50 some shuttles. He's been our treasurer in the past and a great board member. Hello, Doug Forrest, Steve Jokums, Larry Pusker. We got Mitch Rothman, a man space is on there, Gary Gerald, and Tommy Usiak are watching today. And they all know that the moon is huge in our minds, from the poems, the songs, the movies, the artwork. The moon, you just can't hardly escape it. Any day there's something about the moon, and now with the Artemis program, wanting to go back to the moon, got my Artemis shirt on here. She is the Greek goddess of, Artemis is the Roman goddess of the moon, uh, as Apollo was the god of the sun. So got Carlton Bailey, beautiful moon here in Michigan this morning. William Whiting was saying it's going to be full tomorrow after midnight. So you're all going to be getting a lot of moonshine, the kind of moonshine you can't get too much of, right? So Marty is here today. Hello, my friend. How are you? You've got a question on the shuttle today we're going to show. Everything all right with you, my friend?
Yep, everything's going good.
In fact, Marty's going to be a new board member of the American Space Museum if he likes what he hears today, right, my friend?
Yeah, but I'm sure I'll like what I hear
Yeah,
today.
I know you will. We need some good, solid people like Marty on our board. Not that we don't have them, but so anyway, let's kick this off a little bit and give a big thank you to a guy always giving out free hugs, Terry White. Had another phenomenal show yesterday. Go back and check it out. Well, 100 of you did, talking about the thermal protection system on the shuttle. We can never get too much of that, as he's always got space flown tile that he's putting in my hands and explaining it all to us. So Terry, thank you for your support of our American Space Museum in so many ways. And he's done now probably a dozen shows once a month with us. So Terry's also involved with our Shuttle Fest you'll be hearing more about. And we had this gentleman from France. Oh man, I didn't whip out his name there, and I'm going to be embarrassed because I didn't do that. So I'm going to go back to that. Let me talk about the comet in the sky, okay? This comet is going to be hard to see with your naked eye, particularly now that the moon's gotten so bright. It's really washing it out. But look at this gorgeous photograph of the comet Tashinshin by Peter Horlak in Svit, Slovakia. He's got it in Slovakia. He's got it mirrored in there. No, it looks like the daylight, Marty. That's because the full moon is on this time exposure is given us a lot of light up in the sky up there. So boy, it don't get much prettier than this. Though it's not a good naked eye comet, you'll be challenged to see it if you have a smart phone, particularly the newer versions of the iPhone. You can just take a handheld picture and you'll see it there, and then your eye will go to where your camera saw it there. So uh, it's going to be visible for another week, but it's leaving our solar system after going around the sun. We'll never see it again for 800,000 years, maybe, as it's going way out past the orbit of Pluto into the Oort cloud. It may have been its only visit of our solar system, but it's got a tremendous long tail. Comet to Shinshin there. Let me go back here to, let's go back this way. And I did pull up the name of Franz Softner there on the left. And that's our local friend and ASM supporter, Gary Folsom. Franz was out at the Space Center and he got Guy Gardner to autograph his banner. He's got, this is his Facebook handle, ISS83. All right. And I failed to ask him what the 83 was about, but he's using the figure 8 for Apollo 8 and his 3 there. And he watches Stay Curious and even attended Shuttle Fest 3 last year, Franz. So, a Frenchman here in the museum made friends with Gary, who doesn't live too far from our museum here out at the Space Center, and they came in to check out our museum yesterday. So thank you, Franz, for being a friend. Franz Softner there, alias Facebook ISS83. All right, back to the comet now. 14 humans in space, and I've been a little bit busy today. I didn't look up when is Crew 8 coming back, Marty. They got delayed because of the hurricanes and the weather on either side. It is going to land either in the Atlantic Ocean side near Jacksonville or over by Pensacola in the Gulf side. But I saw a blurb on my feed of news, but I didn't digest it. So anybody knows what's going on with Dragon 8, just chime in there. I don't know if they've got a date when they're going to come back. They've not undocked from the space station. They're not going to do that till the weather's right. Robert Law is up in Dundee, Scotland at the Mills Observatory. No doubt going to show some people the planet Saturn, which its rings are almost edge on. So have fun with that, Robert Law. And we've got a great astronaut birthday. We really like this guy, don't we, Marty? Dr. James Hansen Jim Newman, 4-time space shuttle flyer, turned 68 years old today. 6-time spacewalker, born October 16th, 1956. Get this. He was born, this is a good trivia question for you, Marty. What astronaut was born in the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands, now the Federated States of Micronesia? Well, that'd be this guy, Jim Newman. He considers Pacific Grove, California to be his hometown, and he become a surfing guy there, and in his spacewalks and his program out to Space Center, Mark, he talks about hanging 10 on his spacewalk, putting his toes over the platform that's holding him on the robotic arm. He does a great talk out there. A lot of these astronauts just don't talk about their mission. They talk about things that interest them, and he gives a great talk on the universe and the Hubble wide field that showed all the galaxies and all that. Graduate of La Jolla High School in San Diego, and boy, he was a summa cum laude in physics at Dartmouth College, and also went to Rice University. And he, like our friend Mike Baker, headed NASA's human spaceflight program in Russia right after Mike did from 2002 to 2006. 43 days in space, 43 hours of spacewalking there. And 43 to me means Richard Petty, the great icon of NASCAR racing, the all-time 200 race winner there. There's his physics shirt in space. And there's John Borelli. Hey, you didn't know I was going to do that to you, John Borelli, up there in New York, shaking hands with Newman, as the way he looks when he's a presenter out there at the Space Center. And we got to take him to dinner, Marty. You got a comment about him? I know we've seen him a couple times. No? Okay, Marty's that says nope, gives me the head shake. So John Borelli, thank you for all you do to spread the word about our museum. He comes to Space Coast a couple times a year and really digs collecting space memorabilia as well as the autographs out there. All right, Marty, space trivia question of the day. Take it away.
How many thrusters are on the Space Shuttle orbiter? And you actually had a hint yesterday, if you were paying attention, because Terry White gave you how many thrusters were forward. So now you got to figure out how many thrusters are aft.
So you got time to replay that, but don't watch is what we're going to talk about. Is I'm going to get in some lunacy, and we'll have.
Tell Jay not to answer right away.
Yes, and we're beginning to realize it's tough to stump Steve Jokums. Okay, so don't throw it out there right away, Steve. In fact, don't anybody answer it until we ask for it here towards the end of our program here. And I'm watching the clock because we got to be out of here in about 15 minutes. So let's roll on with some lunacy. As you know, each full moon is given a character name, not just by Native American Indians, but by cultures all around the world. And usually it relates to something that's happening to human beings or animals at the time. Thus, we have this is the hunter moon. All right, the moon of October and November could be the full hunter moon, depending when it falls. But this is the hunter moon after the harvest moon that we had in September. The full moon of November is the beaver moon. Why? Because Native Americans in the Midwest particularly noticed beavers were building dams and very active. So they could be, they don't go into hibernation, but so that they can survive the winter. The full cold moon, of course, is December. Sturgeon moon's an interesting one for August, but that's from Native Americans up in the Wisconsin area, I believe, and so on. The wolf moon of January is called that because of the baying of wolves, because they're hungry, and you'll hear them crying because they're so hungry, scarce to find food at the time. So a lot of cool things about our full moon, including naming personas of mythology. And this is Artemis. We think of her as a huntress, and she's a vicious huntress if she wanted to survive. So that's why I chose this kind of cool picture of her hunting, Artemis. But the Greeks called her Selene. Now remember, the Greeks invented all the mythology, and then the Romans stole it and put their own names on it 1,000 years later. So, but Selene is the Greek name for the moon goddess. Always thought of to have a female persona. This is the moon, folks. There is no dark side of the moon, though I enjoy the album tremendously. Particularly the first time I heard it, I was like, are you kidding me? By Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon album. But distinctly two different hemispheres. Basically, the front one side is locked towards the Earth, and the back side is so heavily cratered with not many impact basins, all right? Each one of these dark areas called Maria were created by an asteroid-sized object that hit the moon when it was being formed 4 billion years ago. Now, we think our solar system is around 5 billion years old. The moon and the Earth are around 4.5 billion years old. We have brought back rocks over 4 billion years old from the moon on the Apollo era. But look at the difference, okay? Day and night on there. And it's hard to figure out. It must have been the Earth's gravity that pulled some of this on there. There are some of the poke in the moon's eye, so to speak. These circular areas, the Sea of Serenitatis, Mare Imbrium, were all impact basins that were created by craters throwing out tremendous amount of lunar debris all over the place. As I'm pointing to this rayed crater here, Tycho, you see the rays coming off of that? That is impact material that in the 1/6 gravity traveled over 800 miles in some places. The moon is 2,000 miles across. So this ray here is well over 800 miles. And these rays of where Tycho excavated lunar material is where we landed several. Apollo 16, for example, was landed in one of those rays to try to bring back interior, from the moon's interior rocks. If you're looking at the full moon tonight, it's real easy to see this oval on the right. That is another impact basin. That is called the Sea of Crisis, MarQ. And if you just look to the left of it, you're basically seeing on the shores of the Sea of Tranquility the Apollo 11 landing site. And then there's all the other landing sites of our six manned missions. The last one, Apollo 17, in 1972. 11, 12, and 14, which was going to be 13, are all along the equator because that took less energy and fuel. Then 15 went way up there at a Hadley Rill, my favorite one, and 17 was on 16 returned sort of the equator because they thought where there'd be volcanic activity where they landed, but there was none. So that false positive was still worthwhile. How did we get to the moon? Well, of course we got on it aboard this gigantic gun, right? That is all aboard for the moon. That was a moon gun that was proposed back in the days of H.G. Wells, the great science fiction writer, pioneer of science fiction. But of course, we know that Marty Winkle, my co-producer here, helped build with Grumman and all of his colleagues the lunar module that you see there on the left. This is Apollo 17. And as you notice, it's kind of messy around there, Marty. You know, they just pulled stuff out and let stuff drop where it did. Not sure what that white looks like a piece of a scaffold or something there. That was obviously something that carried some equipment on there. You see the lunar rover in the back. But that's my way of introduction. How much garbage is on the moon, Marty? That'd be a good trivia question. How many tons of garbage is on the moon? Would you believe 200 tons? And the official NASA catalog of man-made material on the moon, showed here, lists 796 items, 765 of which are from American missions. The other ones mostly from Russia. Most of these are large objects, like the descent stages of the Apollos that we're going to see, or the crashed impacts of Surveyor 7, or Lunar Orbiter 3, or Ranger 4 over there on the left. That was a kamikaze reconnaissance camera mission. So things that we have on the moon have been categorized. There's everything from human poop on the moon. They make a big deal about there might be like 90 bags of feces that the astronauts left on the moon. Hey, we're human. Everybody has to go. But hammers, cameras, camera lenses, all right. Apollo 12 even left the camera film in one of the cameras, unfortunately, on one of the color cameras. But most, you got portable life support systems, all right. You've got cables, mounts, and handles, and then the scientific instruments that are on the moon, all right. And so NASA's categorized all these very neatly. This is Apollo 11. I'm showing you the Apollo 11 landing site there from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. Yes, we have a very 12 years Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has been orbiting the moon from about 60 miles high, and that is the descent stage of the lunar module. You can even see Neil Armstrong's tracks there going over to West Crater there, the furthest that he walked away from the lunar lander. But you got things like a vomit bag, the lunar TV camera, a hammer, a lifeline, gold olive branch, the Apollo 1 memorial patch, for example, on the moon, laser range reflector that you can still point a laser beam at and get it to there. Now here's Apollo 15 and its descent stage, and the lunar rover vehicle is over here where they watch the top. That's only about a football field, if that, in distance. And then the ALSEP is the Apollo Lunar Science Experiment Package. That's where all the scientific stuff was put. And obviously you see the tracks of the rover and the astronauts in the lunar soil there. Well, around, they've itemized things like lunar overshoes. Again, that's Apollo 11. I didn't go forward there. I went backwards. There's the Apollo 15 stuff. Microfilm wall. A U.S. Marine Corps flag, Marty, was left on the moon. I did not know that. I think Jim Irwin was a Marine. liquid fueled cooled garments, the fallen astronaut sculpture. All right, portrait of James Irwin. Many astronauts left personal effects there like that. And so that is stuff garbage on the moon that I thought as you look up at the moon tonight, just, yep, humans, wherever we go, we're dirty creatures, all right. And now to whiz through a couple beautiful pictures here. This is a picture of the vehicle assembly building that I took all these photographs. That's a vehicle assembly building through a telescope, actually, on over at Spaceview Park. It looks orange because of the atmosphere is coloring the moon. It is not orange, but low in the atmosphere looks like that. Almost looks like a sunrise, doesn't it, Marty? So what you don't want to do is what I did here and blow out the moon's Marius so it only looks like a, yeah, right. So it looks like a flashlight in the sky. But I had to get that to get the Kennedy Space Center on the bottom. Mitch Rothman's corrected me. That's right. That was an all Air Force crew, Apollo 15. Of course, I should know that. And of course, Joe Irwin was an Air Force pilot. Nonetheless, they took a Marine flag there, according to NASA. There's another beautiful shot where that I could balance the ambient light of the VAB with the lunar Maria. It would not look the same if that shot looked like a flashlight in the sky. So you've got to use your settings a little bit on the sometimes manual and find that sweet exposure that gets the lunar Maria like that. Now, again, why is it red? Because of the refraction of the Earth's atmosphere. We're looking through over, though there's 100, if the atmosphere is 100 miles up, and it's not, it's only, the atmosphere is only about 50-mile layer, if that, we're looking through now 200 or 300 miles of atmosphere because we're looking at an angle and looking through it a longer way there. You might see this weekend a halo around the full moon. This is because, again, I overexposed the moon to get the halo. There's ice crystals that form a 22.5 degree arc. 45 degrees is that moon from that ring around the moon from side to side, caused by ice crystals. So with the transition from summer to fall, particularly you in the northern climates, be on the lookout for a ring around the moon. And Native Americans would say, count the stars inside the ring, and that's how many days until it rains or some other significant event. And Mark Usiak, whose birthday was yesterday, took this beautiful moonrise over the Pennsylvania wilderness there. And again, a perfect exposure of the Maria. He captures the red that is caused by the atmosphere, and you get a good moon illusion of it, that it's so huge, though you can always cover it up with your little finger outstretched. The moon is always half a degree across. Well, you may put in your answers to Marty's question, how many thrusters on the Space Shuttle orbiter? Well, and then we'll see who knows how many are on the Space Shuttle orbiter here in just a second. That is one of my favorite pictures that I've taken of the moon. Of course, down here, exemplifying the great exposure on the lunar surface itself. And then you silhouette the palm tree. So if you got an opportunity and know a little about photography, try to frame something in your picture in the foreground, all right, so that it gives it a human feel, or have fun with it. A lot of people have fun with taking their kids or their significant other out there and have them putting their hands on the moon, or like they're holding the moon. Or some people will get on a ladder and put like a little hat on top of the moon as it's rising. You can do that when it's rising up low and having a lot of fun with it. All right. Steve Jokums has chimed in there, Marty. Is he correct?
Well, who do we believe, Steve, or do we believe Terry White?
Well, I don't want to question Steve like that, Marty. He's a great contributor of ours there.
Well,
Does anyone else have an answer to how many thrusters are on the Space Shuttle orbiter? Steve Jokum says 44. Let's go to another slide here. Another quick question. If Saturn was at the distance of the moon, 250,000 miles away, would it look like this picture at Cocoa Beach? Fact or fiction? Well, the moon is 2,000 miles in diameter, takes up half a degree of the sky. Saturn is 70,000 miles in diameter, and at 250,000 miles away, it would take up 17.5 degrees of the sky. So that is a fact. Could you imagine going out some night and seeing Saturn like that? It would be unreal. However, several of its moons orbit a little further away from that. So Dean Babcock was going to guess 18. Nope, Dean, that's way off. So Steve Jokums at the Lake County Spaceport says the orbiters have 38 primary and 6 vernier thrusters, 44 total. Marty, what does Terry White say?
Well, Terry says there are 48. There are 16 forward and 32 on the Ohms pod and aft section.
Okay.
So
no, 48 is Terry's number there.
Yeah.
And Steve says 44. He's probably going just missed it by 4.
Well, one of them missed it by 4.
Yeah, one of them missed it by 4. Good question. We'll leave it up to you all up there to decide. That's a lot. And I was going to go with like Dean Babcock, probably 25 or 30. But there's a lot on there. Haven't talked to too many astronauts about what that sounds like. The few I have say it sounds like a cannon blasting off. Marty, who's watching today? Because I don't see that. Here, is my daughter on there?
No.
All right, my daughter's not on there today. Tom Celentano is, Bill Whiting, Carlton Bailey, Gary Gerald, Mitch Rothman, Larry Pushkar, Steve Jokums, Doug Forrest, Robert Law. Thank you all for watching today. As you know, the moon is always on my mind, and it's going to be big and bright. Hope it's clear where you're at to enjoy it. And all of you that I just mentioned here, and anyone that watches our show, you know how we feel about y'all, right, Marty? They know how we feel about them. We love you to the moon and back, folks. All right, so thank you all for watching Stay Curious today. We did it under 30 minutes, and Marty and I got to go sit in on an important board meeting of the American Space Museum directors there, and we'll tell you some of the info that comes out of that tomorrow, I'm sure. So until tomorrow, when I've got Bert Dick of the National Space Society coming on to talk about a cool settlement conference he was at recently, I am Mark Marquette telling you, come back, see Bert tomorrow so we can bridge the space between us. Thank you.